Hola mi gente, this is Ish.
And this is DJ.
And this is
Pero let me tell you. Dale.
Number nine.
What?
That's the Yoko Ono, John Lennon song.
Ugh. Esa mujer.
You know you love Yoko Ono. Here, I'm gonna do my best Yoko Ono impression.
I love Yoko Ono as much as somebody loves a root canal.
She sometimes sounds like a root canal.
Aye.
Yeah. And that is how we're starting episode 37.
37. Welcome, everyone, to episode 37 of Pero Let Me Tell You. Before we leave Yoko Ono, do you remember that performance she gave? I think it was at the Met Gala.
I think it was at the Met. Not the Met Gala, but it was at the Met.
It was at the Met a few years ago, where she just stood in front of the microphone. This was like, what, maybe 3-4 years ago? So it was recent.
She's like,
yeah, she started sounding like a hyena giving birth. And then what I thought was great were the people there that were like, fantastic.
That was so moving.
Amazing.
I've never felt so much artwork course through my veins before.
Oh my god.
You got something coursing through your veins is bullshit.
Yeah. Anyway. Bueno, episode 37. Here we are, people. ¿Cómo está todo el mundo?
Espero que todo el mundo está bien. Hope everybody's doing groovy.
Happy Friday. #Pero
Friday.
Pero Friday. Pero Friday is like our thing now.
It is. It's #Pero Friday.
We need to make t-shirts of that.
We do.
Martha of Miami.
Yeah. We need to make... We'll hit up your people, Martha. We'll see what's what. So, before we get into anything, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. As some of you may or may not know, we had some fantastic guests recently. The episode is coming up with the Mamas and Merlot. And they are part of the GeekBro network. And we are actually now part of the GeekBro network of podcasts, too.
We're part of the GeekBro.
GeekBro
network.
GeekBro. Bro.
I guess we're certainly geeks.
And we're bros.
So that makes us Geek Bros.
It actually makes us Geek Bros. So some of the great podcasts they have, and you can find them on geekbro.net, is obviously Mamas and Merlot, which we're on their podcast actually this week.
Yes, we are. So everybody check them out. They're going to be a future guest of ours.
Yes, they're fantastic. But then there's also, What's Good? Shiver, which is like a horror podcast. You've got, my favorite is Mountain Geekmore, which every week they take a different topic. They do a roundtable discussion, usually 4 of them, and they say, okay, what was the best 80s movie? And everybody has to pick 4 that they will put on their version of Mount Rushmore.
Oh, okay.
So Mount Geekmore, and so things like that, they are definitely a lot of fun, and we look forward to becoming part of the family and collaborating with them a little more.
Yeah, and we'll put up on our Instagram their site and where you could link that up. But what I think is really great about the network of podcasts, which we're now part of the network, as you said, is that there's something for everybody, and whether you enjoy lively conversation like ours, or you enjoy, something like horror. Horror is like a really big genre. Like, it
is a really big genre, and it's such a big genre that actually our guest on today's episode, 2-time Tony nominee Daphne Rubin Vega, who was the original Mimi in Rent, actually this week dropped a horror podcast called The Horror of Dolores Roach. All the episodes are available right now. And it's basically a modern Latina retelling of Sweeney Todd. So yeah, horror right now. I mean, we're Halloween.
Yeah,
Halloween time as well. So it's huge.
Yeah, it is. It is. So speaking of horror,
are we gonna go back to Yoko Ono?
Oh no. Although this is kind of worse.
Heading
into our, I was gonna say, literal hot topics. So I'm not sure if it was this past week or the week before, but recently, within the last several days, did you hear about the IPCC report about global warming by 2030?
No, but I'm pretty sure it's not saying we're all good, keep doing what you're doing.
No.
Okay.
So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the kind of world body on issues having to do with global warming and climate change, pretty much said that if we keep going the way we're going, by 2030, so just 12 years from now, the climate would have gone up 1.5 degrees from what it was a few decades ago, which is an alarming, rate in terms of how high the temperature has gotten.
But doesn't that just mean the rest of the world will be at the temperature Miami's at all year round?
And pretty much the reason why a 1.5 degree increase is so important is because it's the tipping point between I guess warming or warmer temperatures and catastrophic effects, because they find that the 1.5 degree tipping point is when you go over 1.5 degree, you start having catastrophic weather issues, whether it's more hurricanes, more tornadoes, rising sea levels,
Rita Ora becoming an EGOT.
Right. All this also leads to food shortages.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a cycle. It's a chain reaction. Chain reaction. It's a vicious cycle. Right. So pretty much they kind of put out this warning that if governments don't act quickly and do something to turn, because they find that all of this has been elevated or precipitated by greenhouse emissions. So the argument is that greenhouse emissions is something that can be altered, it can be changed.
Right.
Because obviously, geologically speaking, the world naturally has eras of higher temperatures and lower temperatures. Hence the Ice Age.
When we had Pangea.
Pangea.
Love Pangea.
But there is a natural evolution to temperature historically on Earth. But what obviously the whole argument is that the world is warming up quicker than it ever has, and it's due to human behavior. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't like the heat. I mean, aside from the Tony Braxton album. I'm just not.
Can you feel the heat?
Anybody want some ice cream?
That was pretty good.
Thank you. Not a fan of global warming. I mean, I don't really know how do I feel about it? Not good. I guess my first question would be like, okay, well, what can we do, right? Because I feel like in the last couple of years, again, I always hope for the best. I feel like because we've become more aware of people's being vocal about things, I don't think it's that more people. I mean, the reason I say that is because I feel like, again, people have been, it's not real, it's real, it's not real, it's not real, tastes great, less filling. But we have, I feel, as overall in the world, been doing things to counter this. You know what I mean? To some degree. More people recycle nowadays, I think, than they used to in the past. I think more companies are being a little bit more conscientious. So I'm just curious as to what else can we do? And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm actually genuinely asking, like, what little things can we do in our everyday life? Because I'm always of the mind when people come out with these types of things, these reports, it's important. We have to pay attention. But it's not enough for me to just say, like, this is going to happen. Bye. I'd like to understand what can I do at the most basic level.
Well, because
I'm not a corporation.
I think that at the most basic level, you mentioned it. You can recycle. You could drive a low emissions car, although
you've lost credibility there, sir.
I did lose complete credibility, but I like to go fast.
But we live in Miami where there's always traffic. How fast are you going?
But I'd like to know I can go fast. Yeah. I need all 587 horsepower that my car has.
The ostrich knows it can go fast. It's not always going that speed.
Anyway, that's not the point. I just did lose credibility, didn't I? Damn it, I shouldn't have that Hemi. That Dodge Charger with a Hemi. Anyway, now you make me sound like un hipócrita.
Pretty much, it's like decídete.
That's such a great word in Spanish, right? In English, it's just you're a hypocrite. In Spanish, it's like hipócrita.
Well, that's like in Spanish the word for mortgage.
Hipoteca.
That sounds so important.
Yeah.
Like, oh my
but
God,
anyway, the problem here is obviously like big matters in terms of corporate waste and whether it's vehicle emissions or airplane emissions. There's a lot, and what I've never quite understood is why this became a political issue. Because I think that everybody wants to save the earth, quote unquote. But
I can tell you why.
But
I can tell you exactly why. Because for most of these corporations, in order for them to make these changes would require expense.
Yeah.
And so they go from the route of like, well, then I'm going to need tax cuts. And then all of a sudden it becomes
a regulation issue.
Exactly.
Right. So then one party favors regulation and the other party doesn't figure regulation. And then the party that is against regulation, their whole mantra is that regulation leads to job cuts because then companies have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to
That's why it becomes political.
That's a new infrastructure. Right. So, yeah, I do get it. But I've always been of the opinion that, people are always arguing about the science. How accurate is the science?
Who cares?
But here's my opinion on that. And I'm going to tell you and our listeners a little story of the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland. So
I feel like I should be playing a banjo as you say that. It's just like
the Cuyahoga River is the main river that goes through Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And in the late 60s, I believe it was 68, 69, mm-hmm. The Cuyahoga River, there were a lot of different industries and factories and different plants that were on the banks of the river. And they used to, put all their waste into the river. Mm-hmm. So obviously you couldn't fish from there, you couldn't swim from there or drink from there. It was highly polluted.
Right. Oddly enough, you could still skinny dip.
Beware on your own.
Well, I mean, it was like a microdermabrasion.
Well, yes. And this river caught on fire. And it was on fire for several days. Now, I want to say that again. The Cuyahoga River, a body of water, and I've been to this river, caught on fire. And it was on fire for several days. And obviously, the reason why it caught on fire was because of the amount of crap they were dumping into that river. Right. And for those who haven't heard of this story, I invite you to Google Cuyahoga River fire. And you'll see pictures of how the river was engulfed in flames for 2 days. So as a result of the Cuyahoga River fire, the Congress passed the Federal Clean Water Act. Okay. So all those regulations now that you see in bodies of water, whether it's lakes, oceans, rivers, limiting and prescribing what you can or cannot do in terms of pollution.
To all cities but Flint.
Well, that's another story. Stems from the Clean Water Act, which came from the Cuyahoga River fiasco. So my whole thing is that even if the science, let's say that your argument is that the science is not convincing, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't hurt to be
That's my point.
Green, and it doesn't hurt to recycle. It doesn't hurt to not dump things into the river. It doesn't. That doesn't hurt. So why the resistance?
Do you enjoy breathing smog?
I mean, look at Beijing. I mean, Beijing sometimes, I remember
when can't go out.
When 10 years ago when the Olympics were there,
that's right.
It was a major issue for the athletes because they're training, their oxygen levels have to be at a certain point, because they require more oxygen.
When I walk sometimes.
Right. And there the oxygen is the air is such poor quality that, I mean, it is. Look at how it is. I mean, obviously, everything is made in China nowadays, so it's one factory after another, and there probably is little, if any, regulation.
It's cute. You said little,
but I mean, I just think that this is an issue that. I mean, us humans, the human race, we're the smartest, but we're also the dumbest because we don't learn from our mistakes and history repeats itself. And this whole debate on climate change is not going anywhere. I mean, it's not going away. And I feel that people that are don't believe in climate change, their minds are not going to be changed because...
But you don't have to believe in climate... To your point, I don't think you have to believe in climate change or believe in the science of it. All I'm asking of everyone is... why not recycle? Why not? Wouldn't you like to have, things that are nicer?
It's just so many things that you could do.
It's for your own benefit.
And as far as the science, I mean, there's there's pictures of, like, for example, glaciers that have disappeared in like 100 years. Which 100 years in a geological,
that's like
that's
10 minutes.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's like 10 seconds. Like 100 years is a blink of an eye.
Okay.
And an entire like glacier has disappeared. Even here, close to home, we constantly hear now of Miami Beach being flooded.
Hear about it? No, we see it every time it freaking rains.
Right. No, not only when it rains.
No, but I'm saying,
because they have now that king tide that floods the beach.
Yeah.
When did that happen before?
20 years ago when we were kids, that wasn't happening.
That never happened. Like, never. The only flooding we got here was from rain. If it rained a lot, it flooded, but obviously you could put two and two together. Right. But, I mean, I just think that this is something that, obviously, it is alarming. And I don't see. I think people stick to their tribe. There's the people who believe in going green and believe that something needs to be done, and then there's the people who don't. And I don't know. I just feel like the people who don't on some base level are, like I said, cutting off their nose to spite their face. It's almost, and some people might even make the argument, well, it's probably happened before in the earth, and it's just going to happen again. And I'm like, oh, okay, so these are probably the same people who have a 3 cigarette pack a day habit, and they're just like, well, I've got to die from something. Right. You know what I mean? So, well, okay, you've just given up on everything. So thanks. You're doing me as well. Unfortunately, as we said, it's become a political issue. So now it's a blue and red thing, and I don't know. But
it
2030,
should be a green thing.
But 2030, a green thing. But Ralph Nader, the Green Party.
Oh, damn it! Even that's political.
But I mean, 2030. That's
around the corner.
That's around the corner. Just think back. That would have been equivalent to 2007. 11 years. That's 11 years in the future. If you think back 11 years, if they would have put this out in 2007, we now would be fucked.
And we probably wouldn't be recording this.
No.
Or we would be doing it underwater.
Or en una balsa.
Like Waterworld?
No, una balsa. That goes with our heritage.
Just a raft? You mean a raft with a laptop?
Yeah.
Where do we plug it in?
No, because we have solar panel. A little solar panel that has a USB drive that we put in the computer. Beat.
I like that you've thought this through.
I did.
Which means that should that 2030 prediction come true, we can still bring you quality entertainment.
Yes, we'll be by episode, 7,429. But,
By then our sponsor will be sand.
This episode of Pero Let Me Tell You has been brought to you by sand. It's everywhere. In your face, in your ass, in your toes.
And utterly useless.
Actually, do you know that we're running out of sand too?
Is there anything? This is like the other day when I went to Miss Cheesiest and they didn't have cheese for the cheese fries or whipped cream for the shake.
What?
It's like...
What were you supposed to eat?
What do you have? You're a grilled cheese restaurant. How do you run a cheese?
But the salad is great.
They have salad there?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm like, who the hell goes to a grilled cheese place and has a salad?
That just reminded me of the time years ago, and we'll be moving on to our interview in a second. Totally off topic, but it's a nice little story.
Want to do.
The time we went to Next in Lincoln Road years ago. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm obsessed with desserts. I live for desserts. Screw the steak, screw the entree. I'm all about desserts. I'm obsessed with sweets. Yeah. And this place in Lincoln Road Next, they're still open, but their desserts aren't as good.
Or aren't they owned now by the Cheesecake Factory?
No, they copied the Cheesecake Factory's menu.
I haven't been in years.
But anyway, back in the day, they had amazing desserts. This is not
desserts. A sponsored...
They had amazing desserts. And I remember I went in, because we were eating outside, and I went in because I wanted to see the
They had a beautiful dessert window with all
and these were very elaborate, pieces of, cheesecake and cake and mousse.
Little torts. And
torts. And it was, I was so overwhelmed because I wanted to pick everything that I... wanted to cry of how first world problems, obviously. Yeah. I was so overwhelmed because I'm like, I want the cheesecake, but then if I get the cheesecake, I can't have the chocolate cake, and if I get the chocolate cake, I can't get the apple tart, and then I can't get the strawberry shortcake. I ended up getting a bowl of fruit.
To this day, I don't let him live that down.
A bowl of fruit. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have fruit. Never mind.
Is that okay to go to a place that has so many yummy things and have a bowl of fruit?
I couldn't pick it.
That's like going to a vineyard and being like,
I couldn't Sophie's
choice
it. No. So, wow, what a great transition to our interview with Daphne.
Yes. So as mentioned, we have an interview coming up with the multi-talented Daphne Rubin Vega. Some of you may know her as the original Mimi in Rent. Some of you may know her from her time on Les Mis.
How does it go? 5,064,010,000 hours. I've never.
Clearly, you don't know the song that well.
I don't know the song.
No.
How does it go?
525,600 minutes.
I'm sorry, Daphne. I should have known that. But I knew that it was a big number.
Yeah, it was a large number.
It was a large number. I said, what, 500
it was a
trillion?
unit of time.
Isn't it in cups of coffee?
In daylights, in midnights, in no sé cosa, in cups of coffee.
Isn't there cookies in there somewhere?
In inches, in miles, in strafter, in stride.
Okay, wow. Anyway.
Beautiful song. Anyway, so we have an interview with her, and she talks to us about that as well as her experience, coming from Panama, and her latest project, The Horror of Dolores Roach. So without further ado,
here's our interview with
Daphne.
Thank you. Enjoy.
All right, listeners. So as we told you, we have a very, 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 I don't think I can say very enough, special guest on today's episode. Most of you probably know her as the feline of Avenue B, and she is a 2-time Tony nominee. She's just done so much. Please welcome to our little dog and pony show, Daphne Rubin Vega.
Daphne, welcome to Pero Let Me Tell You.
Happy to be here. I am happy to be here.
Thank you. We are very, very happy to have you.
I just want to start off with on a personal note. I mean, as I mentioned in the opening, you created the iconic role of Mimi for Rent, and the amount of times that I have responded to people who say you look familiar with your line like your dead girlfriend.
Like your dead girlfriend.
If they respond properly, I know that we're going to get along. So I just want you to know that I do that so more often than a normal person probably should.
And I've actually seen him do that.
That makes me happy.
Wow, we've come full circle. We have come full circle.
I've done that with It's a Living.
Yeah.
And it just goes, yeah.
We're interviewing the person who played the part that you say. Great full circle moment. Daphne, there's just so much that you've done and we want to talk about. So as we always tell all of our guests, tell us a little bit about you, how you started, and exactly what you do.
Well, I was born in Panama.
Panameña.
Yo soy panameña.
Okay.
My mother's side is from an island off the Caribbean called Barbados. And my father's side of the family was from Panama proper. So my mom was a black Latina. My father was not so black. And yeah, I grew up in the United States because my mom left my dad when I was 3, and my brothers and I were kind of split up with different aunts and uncles. And my mom came to the States to get yet another nursing degree because the Panamanian nursing degrees don't work in the States. So, I'm saying all that to say that it's a typical immigrant story.
Yeah, I would anticipate it.
How, she kind of had to leave the kids behind to come to the States and bring the kids back and, have us all get our papers and get, legitimized because she wanted us to have the opportunities for a better life than were available really in Panama, I guess, at the time, according to her. So I came here very, very early, at first with my staying with my uncle and aunt. My uncle worked for the Panamanian embassy. I stayed in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
I've been everywhere.
So
I went to 8 different schools.
Where did you guys settle?
In New York City.
Oh, in New York City, okay.
Yeah, my mom married my stepdad, who was a Jew.
Oh, that's a mix. That's a blend in the family there.
Yeah, no, I was, I always say I was raised by some free radicals. I had some serious free radical thinking growing up. Very, very bohemian, very left wing, very war is not healthy, is kind of a brutality, that's an alternative to not talking and stuff. So it's interesting being here now after that kind of history. It's easy for me to digress when you ask me to talk about my past because
well, no, because I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are, and I'm glad that you mentioned, that you're your typical immigration story, because, we were part of the Immigrant Archive Project, and which is a great organization that does a lot of work, especially now, regarding immigrants and immigrants telling their story. And obviously, a lot of guests that we've had on the podcast have had their own immigration story. So, you sharing with us is very important. How would you say that your immigrant experience, influenced or had any type of shaping into your drive or into your career?
Wow. That's a mouthful. I'm coughing.
Not from the question, I hope.
I mean, just what I now call, the existentialist quandary of otherness. I was always told I came from everywhere, and then feeling like I really did not belong anywhere sometimes. Growing up, there was a huge disconnect with that. So I think that before I could even articulate it, it's really painful when you're young and you need to articulate something that comes from deep down, and there's no easy resource or way to articulate that. I mean, that was sort of like a lifelong quest for me that only now it seems to have the threads of the tapestry coming together, where that experience, the biggest miracle about the experience of some of our immigrant stories is to be able to survive to tell them.
Right. Right.
When we survive enough to tell the story, the real story, it's quite an honor, and it's quite an empowering tool.
Absolutely. Well, especially when somebody has been as successful as you have, because you really have quite the resume and roster of projects and accolades that you've had in your career, which is quite exceptional. So I'm curious. Tell us a little bit how little Panamanian girl living in New York City, growing up. What did you say? Your stepfather was Jewish.
Mm-hmm. He was a Jewish American from the Bronx.
It's from the Bronx. How do we go
in the Bronx? He went to the same school my son goes to.
Oh wow! Full circle.
Yeah.
Talk about a circle.
He was an Ivy Leaguer, and he.
Oh wow.
He made sure that, or he didn't make sure. He tried to make sure that we did better.
Right.
It's hard, for a man to marry a woman that he loves. And then, my mom passed away really early. So then he's like left with these 3 kids, these 3 brown kids of like different shades of brown. And he wants to let us know that the playing field is not even. And yet we're listening to somebody who doesn't really look like us, who doesn't even claim to be Caucasian. So I did my best to like not be hearing any of that. And I proceeded to navigate the world thinking that like I was enlightened like any straight white man.
Right.
And that the same privileges and rights, derechos, were afforded me.
Claro,
and
yeah.
I lived in a lot of denial sometimes that was true. So there's something wrong with me. It's taken a long time to realize like, oh no, I think a lot of the successes that we achieve, and I say we, like anybody that achieves anything, is sometimes in spite of efforts and not because of them.
But do you think that your success may have been actually a result of that? Definitely I think a result of that thinking of like, claro que I'm entitled to the same things. You know, like you didn't quote unquote know that you weren't supposed to have those opportunities. So, ¿quién me va a decir a mí que no? You know, and I'm sure que that painted your entire, you know, just thought process in terms of your career, and I'm going to do it. Why not?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, there are some of us who want to prove people wrong, and it just seems inconceivable that, I mean, like if my oldest brother could do it at 13, at 15, and my other brother could do it at 13, the girl, wanted to do it at 12, you know, and there was like, that wasn't gonna work, you know. Te lo digo también, I was a big rebelde, you know?
Really? You look so not that person. I can't imagine that.
Well, you know, before I was a rebel, I was a good girl. I'm just trying to find, like, where, you know, there's always that fulcrum, like, what happened, you know?
Yeah.
And,
but it's interesting.
Yeah.
If I can kind of just, you know, talk a little bit about your three, you know, I would say bigger roles, to a degree, you know, there's always been kind of an undercurrent of immigration, I think even as far back as Mimi, because I know it wasn't explicit with her, but, you know, she does talk about the fact that she, you know, the Spanish baby's crying, so she's living in that world, and she has a whole other host of problems.
Can I just say something about that line?
Yes.
Like, to this day, I still get a little bit of a cringe, because they weren't Spanish babies. They're not from Spain.
Thank you for that. Not from Spain. I get it would have hurt the music, but yeah.
No. And I just want to put that out there, that I know, you know, I know that you know that I know.
Let the record show.
And like, I really wanted it to be Latin babies at that juncture in the world, in my time. That was not my call.
True. But let it be known. Let it be known. Let the record show.
Yeah, let the record show.
But then also, you know, with Anna in the Tropics, and most recently with, you know, Love You Like Hell, I feel like there is this... Like hell. Miss you. Sorry. Well, I was... Sorry.
It's okay.
I was just saying how I feel about you. I'm sorry.
I love you like hell, too.
Thank you.
Now, are you Ish or DJ?
This is Ish. I know. I'm so sorry. I feel like...
This is DJ.
I'm just kidding.
But, you know, immigration, Hispanicness tends to kind of always be present. Is that something that you consciously have decided, you know, you want to try to bring to the forefront whenever possible, or is it just coincidence that these interesting characters get written that you can relate to?
Well, actually, I would say that it's a bit of both. Be careful what you ask for. I always wanted to be of kind of, you know, some form of service. I remember telling people that I was an actress. I'm an actress, and people saying, that's funny because you don't look like an actress. And at the time it seemed really kind of hurtful and dismissive, but I didn't know why. And I was wondering if it's because I didn't, you know, have a straighter nose or something, but it was really because there aren't many actors that look like me. Mm-hmm. And like, it's taken me a long time to figure that out. So as far as playing, you know, going through like a period of playing undocumented people, or a period of playing, you know, junkie strippers with AIDS, or somebody, you know what I mean? It's like, we make either the best of the roles that are offered us, or we write our own. You know, right. So I went from making the best of what was given to me to creating my own content, and also partaking in the content that other people's create for people that look like me. You know, It happens to be that, like, I've gone in for roles and been told that, I mean, I played Fantine on Broadway, and
yes,
Fantine, you know, in a revival, and was told that I wasn't playing it right because Fantine was a lady. And I distinctly remember reading a chapter in Victor Hugo's, like, I know that the musical is not the novel, but, you know, I Fantine was a beautiful young woman. She was not a lady. She was a toothless whore at the end, if that's what I recall properly, you know. And I mean, that's just vulgar language for, you know, a beautiful human being who had to give up everything to take care of her daughter. She didn't become a prostitute because she wanted to. She became a prostitute so she could take care of her daughter. And so I've come across a lot of...
I think it's fair.
Condescension? I don't know how to say it other than that. It's very... You get to be condescended to a lot.
Oh, I can't imagine.
When people are trying to explain to you why they don't want you inhabiting a role that seems more upgraded, you know?
And it's
like...
And it's probably, many times it's probably just for such a superfluous reason, such as, you know, well, you don't have, you know, you're not blonde, or you're not this or that, and it's like, that can be rectified. If that's the only thing, you know, sometimes it's as stupid as that, and that's just
well, I've
all
tried
kinds of
it.
wrong.
I mean, I'm a little bit of a blonde now. I mean, it's just,
True.
You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, do people want to see it or not? And then there's other contexts where, you know, I'm a royal. so go figure.
Yeah.
So I wanna go back a little bit to Rent, and because that's such a, you know, huge, iconic.
I mean, those first few notes come up anywhere, and it's instantly recognizable.
So, you know, as Ish said, you know, you played the role of Mimi. At the time that you auditioned for this role, or, you know, obviously ended up getting the role, did you have any idea, or did anybody involved had any idea that this was going to become the monster and the icon that it became?
No, I think we loved it. I knew that for the first time ever, I liked a musical a whole lot more than I liked musicals before that. I was the kind of, I mean, I wasn't into musical theater a whole hell of a lot. We did grow up with some Jesus Christ Superstar and
It's a great show.
Tommy by The Who happening, but by and large, we weren't musical theater people. My parents listened to classical opera. So I was more familiar with La Bohème, let's say, than I was with Annie, for example. So I kind of was interested in what it was on a dare. I couldn't really understand because I just wanted to, like, you know, garejo para mi papá, you know, like he loved La Bohème. So I figured, well, this is supposed to be a rock opera based on La Bohème. Yeah. So it was a big challenge for me to even dare to show up for the auditions. But I felt like because it was rock and roll, it was my specialty. Mm-hmm. So musical theater was not my specialty, but rock and roll kind of was. So I went in there with the attitude of, this is how that's done. You know, if you want a Latina that rocks, like, this belongs to me.
Damn right.
And I think that, you know, that also that kind of confidence and bravado came from being rejected so much. It was like I was never right for other things because they wanted someone that was not me.
Right.
So by the time auditioning for Mimi came around, it was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose but to show you this is me. So it happened to be the perfect storm. I think I was very lucky to show up at a time when I was like, all right, if you don't like it, fuck it. But this is what it is, you know?
And when in the experience of Rent did you realize that you were part of, you know, something so special, something that went on to become so relevant and so important?
That's a hell of a cast.
I think, honestly, from the very beginning, I did a workshop of Rent in 94, I think, before, the iteration of Rent that went to Broadway, the 15 of us that were galvanized for life. There was a workshop of Rent before that I had done, and where I originally met Jonathan and Michael Greif and Tim Weil and Anthony, a few of the people in the show. Mm-hmm. And I I fell in love with the musical then. It was like the best experience professionally I'd had in my life up to that point. It felt like, it was an experience that felt really bigger than me. Like,
yeah.
I'm corny like that. I like to work. I mean, I'm really, really corny like that. Like,
Some people say corny, some people say genuine.
Well, genuine, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's like, I'm not good at just taking the money and running. And maybe that's why I don't take the money and run a whole lot. But I like to be in projects that kind of nourish me, and I have to admit, I'm very lucky to be able to do that. Right.
So I was actually going to segue into Miss You Like Hell. And, I feel like there is a lot of passion in the interviews I've seen and the way, you've spoken about this project, and just hearing the cast album, which is out now, available across iTunes, Spotify. I feel like I should say like Sam Goody, but that's not a thing anymore.
Oh my God, so
Blockbuster music.
How about me? How about like Crazy Eddie?
Crazy Eddie, Tower Records,
Tower, Virgin, Megastore.
I'll say Amoeba Music in LA, but that's still not around.
Amoeba.
Yeah, I was gonna say Rebel in the Village, but that's gone too.
Oh my God.
Yes, that one made me sad.
How about there was like Vinyl. What was it called?
Well, the vinyl that I remember is the restaurant in Chelsea.
No, that's there was Vinyl Records. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember. Anyway, we digress.
We do, but that's how conversations are the best.
Yeah.
So, speak to us about this project. I know it was something you worked on for a while, and really just is a passion project for you, and on many levels.
Miss You Like Hell is the story of an undocumented Mexican mom who goes on a road trip with her teenage daughter the week before her immigration hearing, before she gets deported, basically. And now, just in light of things,
super relevant.
Yeah. they're really blessed. I mean, we started this project. Kiara Alegria Hudis and Aaron McKeown co-wrote the book and lyrics to Miss You Like Hell, and they started it, I believe, in like 2014.
Wow!
So it was a different time, and
Absolutely.
It was still very relevant. Of course, since then it's changed somewhat, but the story stayed the same, and it's really, really heartbreaking how relevant it is now. But not only how relevant, but how, in light of current events, Beatriz, the mom, and Olivia, the daughter, are blessed because Beatriz was deported, but Olivia, as a young girl, was not detained. That the truth of the matter is that that's what's happening as we speak. Yeah. And so, I mean, outside of it being a serious hot button, like white hot button topic, pardon the pun,
Supernova.
White hot. It's a really, really great musical with really good songs. And it tells a story that in its specificity is very, very soul-touching. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't hear the songs or relate to the songs, you gotta have, like, ice water running through your veins. But some people do, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's okay.
I was listening to it just yesterday, and again, not because you're our guest, but it sounded gorgeous. You sounded absolutely fantastic. But
thank you. I have to say, though, can I just say, and
yes.
It's not because I sound gorgeous, I can't listen to it because it's really moving. I think it needs... I need to have time and distance before. So I thank you and I trust you. I'm very excited to hear that. But like, I cannot listen to it. It's a little traumatizing right now.
But I get it because it is very moving. And that was actually one of the things I was going to say is, unfortunately I had not had the opportunity to see the actual musical, the play in person. But just listening to the cast album, I am able to follow the story. And there have been instances where I've listened to some cast albums where I'm like, this is a great collection of songs, and then I get to the show and I'm like, that's what happens? And you can't follow it through. That's not the case with this. So, it really does tell the story.
In a way, it's almost, it becomes personalized, and it becomes a whole other thing. I'm also fascinated with projects that have different lives, and as rendered in different media. So as a record, it holds, and it's not just a cast album. I mean, it is a cast album, but it serves as its own little collection of stories, particularly because not that many people saw the show in this iteration. I mean, I'm sure there will be many, many other productions,
no doubt,
that will be different, but still.
You want to capture that lightning in the bottle as it happens.
Yeah, and I think that in a way that that album does it. It creates a world where you don't need to have seen anything. You can see it all between your ears. Yeah.
I can attest to that wholeheartedly. Now, you mentioned working across mediums, and because, I'm wondering when exactly you sleep, you also have a project coming out. As of when this airs, it'll have come out this past Wednesday, called The Horror of Dolores Roach.
Yes.
And it is a podcast series. How did that come about?
We love podcasts.
Oh my God.
We're a little biased.
So, this is my baby. This is, we were talking about creating stories that speak to you and relate, and that are relatable, and we tell our own stories. So in the process of working on my own material, I was connected with Aaron Mark, who is a young playwright who wrote Empanada Loca. Remember, you said bring your croquetas and pastelitos?
Yeah.
So I'm bringing my Empanada Loca.
Oh.
Empanada Loca.
We're going to have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Empanada Loca was a solo play, a one-person play that Aaron Mark wrote for me. I was
wow. That's such an honor.
Thrilled. He sought me out, and I thought, oh, wow, he thinks I'm awesome, so maybe I can get him to work on my project. But first, I read this piece, and I just dropped everything. It's a Sweeney Todd inspired, the story of Sweeney Todd, not the musical, but the actual story of Sweeney Todd, which is an old story, an old English penny dreadful, as it were.
Yes, I love that term.
Yeah, it's a modern redux of that story where Dolores comes back to New York City after serving 16 years in jail for taking the rap for selling weed for her boyfriend. And she's looking for her boyfriend because he never responded, came to visit, she took the rap for him. And she's thinking that maybe he's hiding out and, waiting for her so that they can start up their beautiful life together. And really, in coming back to New York after 16 years, she realized the degree of gentrification that has happened. And it totally looks different, the landscape, and everything is different, except she runs back into Empanada Loca, which is the shop that she recognizes in her neighborhood that is now completely different. And Luis, the kid who they used to deal to, has now grown up, and she stays with Luis, and the landlord wants to jack up the rent. And
they never do that in New York.
Through a series of misadventures, bad things happen. Like people die, and they start turning up in empanadas as the
oh my God.
And the empanadas are good. The shop starts doing good business again, and
I'm sure they are.
Is there some type of
really out of hand?
Is there some type of play on the whole try the priest with try the santero priest or something? Being empanadas.
No, but there. Actually, it's not the try the santero priest, but it is kind of like definitely a turn on try the santero.
And how many episodes is it? I know that they're all dropping on the same day, so definitely binge away. How many episodes is it?
Yeah, it's 8 episodes, written by Aaron Mark and based off the one-woman show Empanada Loca by Mark, and also starring me The podcast represents a reunion and beautiful creative journey we have all been on for years together.
Aww.
The Horror of Dolores Roach is a macabre urban legend of love, betrayal, weed, gentrification, cannibalism, and survival of the fittest.
That's a lot of things.
God. That's, buckle your seatbelts.
Yeah.
So we know that you know, one of the I guess co-stars is Bobby Cannavale.
Yeah, I got you a whole thing here. The list is me, Bobby Cannavale, Abigail Spencer.
Oh, wow.
David Zayas, John Douglas Thompson, Keita Updike, Giselle Jimenez, who played my daughter in Miss You Like How, Michael Urie, Richard Kind, Margaret Cho, Elizabeth Rodriguez.
I think we should ask her who's not on
it'd
the
be a
podcast.
shorter list.
Wait, I'm not done yet, though. Noah Robbins, Vanessa Williams, and Lilius White.
She has a Miss America on her.
I got a Miss America. I got lots of Miss Americas and Mr. Americas.
Wow! Oh my God, that's incredible. That's quite the ensemble cast.
I can't tell you. And I got to say, Mimi O'Donnell, she ran the Labyrinth Theater Company when we did Empanada Loca. She was the artistic director. So the three of us, Aaron, Mark, Mimi, and I, just worked together playing this character all the way to this journey, because it started out as a solo show at the Labyrinth. So here we are.
Wow, we're really excited about that. Really.
And next year, I think we get to see you on Netflix and Tales from the City, based on Amistad Mopad's, countless books, right? So I mean,
yeah. Or
seriously, when do you sleep?
Say, when do I sleep?
Okay, I have to. We can't interview you without me throwing some little tidbits in there that I was really excited. First of all, you're in one of my favorite movies, which is Wild Things.
Oh,
yes.
That was the show where I came back from Florida after spending like 3 of the hottest summer months in Florida with like these incredible experiences. I was happy as a clam, and I brought my what do you call that, director's chair? I'm lugging my director's chair on the like in trying to what do you put it on, pack it away, store it,
like in the overhead compartment on the plane.
No. What do you say when you put it on, when you carry, not carry on, pero la otra cosa, when you want to
check it in?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I can't speak English.
La otra cosa of carry on. Check it in.
No,
the
opposite
don't
of
worry.
carry on. I'm trying to check it in, and she's like, "What do you have this? What's with the director's chair?" And I said, "Well, I was just in a movie, and I was in a movie with Matt Dillon and Kevin Bacon and all these people, Bill Murray." And she's like, "Really? What did you do in the movie?" I said, "Oh, I starred in that movie." She's like, "Oh, because you look like you do makeup or something."
Oh my God! Are you?
So I remember thinking, like, wow, that's like, she wouldn't, like, that's like something you say to a Latin person, like, for no stupid reason.
People say without thinking twice, like, oh yeah. Well, actually, you know what? Now that we're talking about that movie, I feel that that's another project. Kind of like when I was asking you about Rent becoming iconic and blowing up. Wild Things, I feel, was one of those movies that kind of was a sleeper hit. It became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And did you guys expect that movie to take on the life that it did?
Well, I'm not really aware of the large life that it has. I know that it's a bit of a cult. What?
Oh, it does.
Yeah, like, I'm
cult
really
status.
thrilled about that. Because, no, I didn't, that kind of, Yeah, that seems like I know that there were some wild things too that were like some strange experiences, but
yeah, no, it was straight to DVD sequels.
Yeah,
así.
one of those like Titanic 2 and
Titanic 2.
there's a Titanic 2 and there's a Cruel
There is.
Intentions 2. Like,
Pero the Titanic 2, the ship already sank. What are they gonna?
it's like
I know,
the ghost
Titanic
ship or
2.
something. Yeah, there's a Titanic 2.
it's another ship that sinks.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't learn our
thing-
lesson with the first one.
Another thing that I'm gonna bring up, for better or for worse.
I'm hoping this is what I think it is.
So you did some freestyle music
Oh yes, I did.
for a group called Pajama Party.
Yes.
And it's
Yes,
funny because
don't
when I
hold
was
it
doing
against me, carajo.
research for our interview,
On the contrary, we're not holding it against you because we are two born and raised Miami boys who are all about freestyle.
we love freestyle.
Yes,
Like, you don't
yes.
understand. Like, every time there's a freestyle explosion concert, we're there.
there, yeah.
You know, like, I think we've seen Taylor Dane and Expose like.
Mira, I've
10
seen
times at
Lisa
this
Lisa
point.
more now than when she was on the charts.
But it's funny. It's funny
I
because
love me some Lisa.
you know, when I started research on it, I started seeing the singles of you know, that you guys had with your group. I'm like, oh my god, I know all the songs. That song, yo no sé, day or night, yo no sé, oh. It's like, oh my god. And then the other one is touch me over and over. I was like, oh my god, we're
my
interviewing
God.
her. I got so excited.
Yes. Oh my Lord. That was when we learned. Well, that's when I started to learn the power of performing in front of people. Do you know? I think like, you know, don't underestimate like Latinos teaching you stuff on stage, because that knowledge took me to Broadway. When you're on stage performing for a bunch of teenage Latinos and Latinas, you want to make sure, because the boys think you're cute, but you don't want to have the girls like cut you, right? So you're actually performing kind of for the girls.
Right.
Like, I got you, sister. You know, like, this is about us and how fierce we are. Like, let the boys watch, but like, I'm not gonna trespass on your stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it was a sort of way to seduce and charm alliances with people so that
That's so
nobody
brilliant.
gets
Like, that's
mad.
such a-
You know what though? But I have to say,
guns didn't start shooting off.
in
Back in
retrospect,
the day, it was rough. I remember like shootouts at teen clubs and hitting the deck, and Noel grabbing the mic and going, "Hey, we're all here for love, pow pow pow." You know.
oh my god. No, but
Yeah,
you know
no,
what?
it was something
Freestyle
else.
music, I have to say that freestyle music in retrospect, you know, obviously when we were growing up listening on freestyle music in Miami in the 80s, we didn't really understand maybe the cultural impact that it had at that point. But in retrospect, looking back on it, you know, this was a type of music that was heavily Latin influenced, and it was by Latin producers, and a lot of, if not most, of the people performing were Latin. So it was a bit of a Latin...
Benitas, like, yeah.
It was a bit of a Latin invasion at that time, but kind of on the DL, not so, you know.
Yeah.
It was certainly Latin, but not what people perceived that Latin would be.
You know, also the economics. It was like a lot of beatbox, a lot of like,
Yeah.
Let's record in the basement. You know, it's very, very, on the DL, like low budget stuff that explodes in the clubs, and definitely informed the trajectory of artists. And, you know, whatever it is, say what you want. It allowed a lot of kids that like had no education or limited in relation. I was very, very lucky. I had a lot more access to, you know, learning how to act and learning how to sing, or getting like my own little like 4-track recording situation so that I could learn how to write my own yo no sé, you know. Like, we took what we could and made what we could to express ourselves. And, you know, it might not have been the height of sophistication. We didn't even know how to play stuff, but the need to express was so there that it informed later styles of music.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny because I was just at this, performed for Jonathan Larson, who composed Rent, has a whole body of work that no one knows about. When he was a kid, writing and trying to, sharpen his chops at writing political satire, writing musicals. And part of it was like the influence of the 80s and 90s. So he was trying to like write some freestyle hits, and like the whole thing was like, okay, these are mindless songs. So let me write one in 10 minutes. But like those mindless songs, like catapulted a whole bunch of people, myself included.
It was sort of a movement, at that time, because it very much defined an era. And I also believe that it defined a place and time, because freestyle music is very much a New York, Miami thing, which again is, Latin.
It's an East Coast Latino thing.
Exactly. And again, at the time, I think people maybe didn't realize exactly what was happening, but looking back on it, it surely has its relevancy in pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, I agree. I was there, so I saw it. And I was part of it. So it's interesting to look back at it because, it's definitely one of the places, in the underground club scene too. I mean, I went from there to like doing my own stuff, which was very underground. And I know that in certain realms it seems so dismissed and like unlegit, but
well, whoever thinks that, whatever really with them.
Say again?
Whoever thinks that, whatever with them.
I'm only saying that to say it, to demystify it. That like legit, not legit, that's a judgment that is not my call. There is no wrong way to make art. You might not like it, you know what I mean? But I know listening now to stuff that my son listens to, and he's crazy about it. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's been my own experience that like when older people called what I loved garbage, it really hurt because I loved it because someone was talking to me. And now 20, 30 years later, like that stuff that they called garbage is like Hall of Fame shit now,
True. Yeah, absolutely.
So if it speaks to somebody, if somebody needs to say it really strongly enough, then someone definitely needs to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can't think of a better
That's
way,
the
honestly.
fuel that makes me keep working. I'm sorry, what?
No, I'm just saying I can't think of a better way to end this interview than that, quite honestly. I mean, that's just such a perfectly beautiful encapsulation of, I just think so many things, quite honestly. And, and I say that just because, honestly, I could keep you on the phone for hours. I won't.
Yes.
Thank you again so much.
Yeah, I know. I've got low battery. I'm going to go out. I hope that was helpful. I hope that we didn't talk over each other or lose each other.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I, again, just want to say very, very sincerely, very wholeheartedly, as somebody who's been a fan of yours for years now, and it's just, I get excited every time you show up on screen in a project. When you showed up on Smash as the publicist, I was just like, it's Daphne Rubin Vega. Like, thank you so much for this interview. It's
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It really was an honor. And I mean, you're such an accomplished performer and artist, because that's what you are. And it means the world to us that you came on our little podcast. So thank you so much, Daphne.
You're welcome. Take care.
Likewise, have a fantastic night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're back.
Hey, hope you guys enjoyed that interview. As we mentioned, we are going to have the link to The Horror of Dolores Roach, which as of the time you're hearing this, I will probably have binged about half of those 8 episodes already.
Me too.
Well, but I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for you.
Okay, that's true. Okay, let's sing the song right.
Because I don't have a
524,600 minutes.
525,000 moments, so dear. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, In midnights in cups of coffee.
Vite. Oh, I did well. I learned it.
And that concludes the musical portion of our...
No, well, I was going to say the music from the musical that I know the songs well or pretty well is Avenue Q.
Which we may sing one day. You don't know. You never know what we're going to do.
The internet was invented for porn.
The internet is for porn. And, you know, everybody's a little bit racist.
Sometimes.
Doesn't mean you go around committing hate crimes.
Oh my God. That musical is so wrong.
That it's right.
But so hilarious. I mean, the bad idea bears.
My favorite.
What does he say? Stick a roofie in her. Oh yeah, the bad idea bears are totally not up with the Me Too movement.
Well, they're bad idea bears.
What was it that he says?
She's wasted. Take her home.
Take her home. Yeah. It's like, oh wow, time's up, bad idea bears.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm thirsty.
Well, I'm a little parched as well. So I guess
it's soda time.
Soda time. Do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Because I'm giving a gasless soda.
Oh, no.
In fact, I'm going to give today...
You give a lot of gasless sodas.
I'm going to give my last soda... It's not going to be a Coke. It's going to be the Beverly.
Oh.
See, remember what the Beverly is? So for those of you listeners out there,
ghastly.
The Beverly, if you've been to the Coke Experience in Epcot Center or in Atlanta, where you could
and it's probably the
taste
one, like,
the different Coke products from around the world. There's this soda that I think is from Italy called the Beverly that I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. It tastes like earwax.
Try it today.
Yes, it tastes like earwax. It's awful. And for those of you who've tried it, you know what I'm talking about. And I feel a lot of people have, because every time we've gone to the one in Epcot Center or the one in Atlanta, you see everybody trying the Beverly and they're like...
Isn't it ironically beautiful, though, that it's from Italy, which has some of the most delicious food in the world?
Yeah, and it tastes like earwax. Anyway, so my Beverly goes to Michael Avenatti.
Michael Avenatti, I know
he is name. The attorney for Stormy Daniels.
Oh, yes.
And I think that the guy is... I think he's a douchebag. I think that he is a
disrespect to Summer's Eve. We'd love to have you as a
sponsor.
He's a
major publicity, media whore. Mm-hmm. And, I think he's very disingenuous. He came out on the scene, obviously representing Stormy Daniels. Fine. She needed legal representation, and this is nothing. Actually, I have nothing against Stormy Daniels. Mm-hmm. She actually, in interviews, she's very well spoken, mm-hmm. Very eloquent. She knows what she's saying. Mm-hmm. Whether you agree with her story or not, the issue's not with her. The issue is with her attorney. Obviously, she started getting a lot of press, and then he made like 300 media appearances.
Yeah, he Gloria Allred did
because of that. He did, but my main problem with him was during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. Okay, he for several weeks prior to the hearing, he kind of was making his media rounds, telling people like, "Oh, I have an affidavit from somebody who was, abused, or somebody that, somebody who is going to, he didn't say abused. He said, somebody who is going to testify or has given testimony about, Brett Kavanaugh's behavior. And this is going to be a bombshell. And this is going to blow everybody out of the water." Mm-hmm. This was the lady who was totally not credible. Like there was a major issue with the credibility, that she's the one that she supposedly saw Brett Kavanaugh in a room where they were gang raping someone. Yeah. But her story had a lot of holes, and obviously people here know where I stand with the Brett Kavanaugh thing. We spoke about it before. I was totally on team, Christine Blasey Ford. I believed 100% of what she did. But, I mean, you have to have a certain amount of credibility when you're going to make these really intense allegations. But my biggest problem with him was that if he, as an attorney and as a public servant, if he felt that this was such an important civic matter, okay, he needed to release that right away. And instead he went on a whole media tour, like it was a total cock tease, like, oh, I have this paper, and then guess what? He releases it, I forget if it was the day of or the day before Christine Blasie's testimony. Mm-hmm. But it was like right before. Right. And it's like, I have a really big problem with that, because you are using this scenario, which is very serious, and you're
painful for both sides.
And yes, very painful. There were a lot of people who were distraught about this. You're using this for your personal gain, because now you made all these media appearances. So you know what, Michael Avenatti? Go chug your Beverly.
The Beverly.
No, I hate people that try to make themselves as the hero, and they're being self-serving, and he's so self-serving in everything that he does. I mean, because he could represent all these people without having to make 300 media appearances. Right. So whatever.
Well, my Coke is not a Beverly.
Mm.
It's actually, I know some people are going to go, oh, but because I love it, it's going to be a cherry Coke, because I think it's refreshing and crisp. But it also goes to I guess, civil service. Mm-hmm. I'm actually giving mine to the Miami Police Department.
Oh, okay.
And it may seem a little weird to give it to an entity like a police department, especially when we all know they prefer coffee and donuts. But the reason I'm giving it to them is because recently the Miami Police have said that they're going to use $1.6 million that they've raised in federal grants to develop a pre-arrest diversion program that will take into account offering opioid addicts rehab for about a period of a year, as opposed to putting them directly in jail. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we're talking about people who have to meet certain parameters. I mean, It's not just like, hey, I'm addicted, Obviously, this is something that still has to be rolled out. It's going to offer addicts an opportunity to go into rehab. It's people who have small amounts of opioids. It's a 1-year treatment program. So there's a lot of caveats that are being worked in conjunction with the Jackson Behavioral Health Hospital, the South Florida Behavioral Health Network, and the University of Miami Health System, as well as other agencies. So on the one hand, I know that people will say, like, oh, but why aren't they doing anything about other drug problems and this, that, and the other? And I mean, we could sit here and nitpick what's the problem that should be tackled first. Mm-hmm. But I think it's commendable that a police department, especially this day and age when so many police departments are getting negative publicity for maybe not upholding their standards to the best of our expectations mm-hmm. and their ability, that they are looking for a route to help people and not just automatically, toss them in jail for something that could potentially have, a correction or a rectification for it. So
I think that that's great, and it's very commendable.
Again, we have to see how it rolls out, but I applaud them for...
I think it's great. I do have a big problem, and that could be a conversation for a whole other day, with the whole opioid crisis and the attention it's gotten.
Is it because of Roseanne?
No, I believe, and this may piss some people off, but it's our podcast. I think that the opioid crisis, and it is a crisis, and it is very unfortunate, and it's something that should definitely be. Well, they've been investigating in terms of the role of pharmaceutical companies and all that, and it's definitely something that is extremely tragic. But I think that the main reason why this has become such a national newsworthy mm-hmm. matter. And again, it's very tragic and it's very sad, and I feel for these people. It's because this has hit, middle-class white people.
I don't disagree with you, but because like I said, to me, I'm choosing to put that aside for the moment.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, this is kind of me digressing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, could it have been used
This is me throwing Beverly at your Coke.
Beverly's always ruining everything.
I mean, I think, look, there
it could have been used to treat, the crack problem.
No, absolutely not. I think that what they're doing is great. But I do think, though, and again, more big picture aside, that, whether it's been the African American community or the Hispanic community, even the gay community, I mean, there have been minority groups that have been plagued with drug matters, drug abuse for decades, that you don't hear about it because.
Fair enough, but I think there's also an element of, with the opioid, many times reputable or not, there is the medical community is involved. And I think that is also what distinguishes it. You know what I mean? At least from a PR perspective, if I can put it in a very blunt way.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to saying like, oh, I got hooked on heroin, which again is a problem. I think it should be addressed. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, you didn't go to the doctor and they prescribed you heroin.
Mm-hmm. No. You know, you make a point, but I mean, communities with drug issues have happened. That's been happening forever, and you know, this is everywhere. But back to your Coke, that's very commendable what they're doing, and I actually think that's a great thing. It's a good thing, as Martha Stewart would say.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
I totally want to eat some like Martha Stewart pumpkin pie.
Oh, good pumpkin pie.
Well,
we need to have a Thanksgiving special.
Of us eating pumpkin pies?
No, but let me tell you Thanksgiving special.
And we can just talk about how we would fill our cornucopia?
How we mix turkey con carne de puerco.
Okay. Okay.
You know, on one side of the table you have turkey.
We actually don't do that at my sister's house.
Oh, in my parents' house, it's an uphill battle because we make the turkey, we have the ham, we have the stuffing,
things like rice, but...
we have the stuffing, we have all the fixings. But my dad and my uncles have to have their pierna with the arroz con frijoles.
Oh, no. Ever since Thanksgiving moved to my sister's house, and she's the one who prepares the whole meal. She's like, I'm making cornbread stuffing, sweet potatoes, mac and cheese.
Y se callan la boca y comen.
El que no le gusta, que traiga lo que quieran comer.
Yeah. So, anyway. Well, everybody, as always, we hope you listen, laughed, and learned.
Yes.
And what is it? 565 billion trillion.
I think you're mixing it up with the beginning of the Big Bang Theory theme song.
A whole universe was in a hot, dense state.
Then 14 million years ago, expansion started.
Wait.
Yep.
We built a pyramid. Science, math, and history. All unraveling the mystery that started all with a Big Bang. Hey!
On that note,
grab your croqueta, your pastelito, and your jupiña. And we thank you so much, as always, for listening. And we hope everybody has a great day.
Yeah, don't forget to check us out as part of the GeekBro Network, where you can find other podcasts such as Mamas and Merlot, Mount Geekmore, Mr. Multiverse. Also, we are still having that discount code PERO for the Save Halloween Party. If you're still interested, it does take $20 off of your open bar.
20 peso, people.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That drops it down to $75. ¿Tú sabes lo que es $75 for open bar all night? Good luck getting that on the beach anywhere.
Yeah.
And as always, please don't forget to subscribe to us across iTunes. Now we're on Spotify. We're on YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and feel free to leave us a review and comments. We love hearing from you guys.
And we are also on AOL, Prodigy.
Yes.
And you could log into those sites on
Western Union wire transfer services.
On your Netscape Navigator. On your Windows 95 laptop. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much.
All right, guys. Bye.